drill sergeant stood in your face and said, "You're lower than whale shit at the bottom of the ocean." Tried to destroy you, you know. And you said, "Yes, drill sergeant," because that was the only answer that would keep it from being worse, right? You know, are you a rabbit? I remember once, you know, loading up on salad, you know, in the mess hall, and the drill sergeant looked at me and says, "Are you a rabbit?" "Yes, drill sergeant." And the whole time I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what an interesting show. They're really skilled at this. Look at that one recruit who's standing there just, "Oh, my mommy." He was totally broken. In fact, they couldn't recover him. They did such a good job breaking him down, he had to go home. They sent him home. That was back in 1978. I don't know if it's still the same now. That wasn't co-ed. No, it's still not, it's different now?
Failure to adapt is still a thing.
Yeah. Well, of course, now I think they have co-ed companies in training, don't they?
Yeah, in non-combat MOSs are co-ed generally.
We actually had quite a few females in the 98 series in the translation field. Actually, women generally are better linguistically than males. Females. If I'm females and males, I should say females and males instead of, well, sorry. So anyway, I retreated into my mind, and I was just watching what was going on. So that's a Stoic technique to avoid. You'd use the same thing when you're driving down the Glen Highway. So as you're driving down, and you're of course paying attention to the speed limits, and in fact you're going even slower if it's icy and snowy, because of course, you know, you've got to slow down in those conditions. And some bozo drives by, super testosterone-driven individual, just, you know, and you know, your immediate biological response is kill him. You know, and you can feel the you know, squirt of the hormones in your gut, you know, because you're suddenly ready, you know, for a fight. But you have to think to yourself, no, my main goal is to get to class so that I can torment my students with some more of this philosophy. And if I take off after that guy and try to get him back, I'm going to end up with both of us dead. So I'm not interested in arguing with that guy. I'll be passing him sooner or later anyway, because he's going to be in a ditch off on the right-hand side. And so I tell myself not to be concerned about that particular event, right? I retreat into myself, and I am happy with myself. I avoided doing what I might naturally have done had I not had the discipline to control myself, etc. Right? Yes? This is Stoic. You know, and at least my interpretation of the Stoic. That makes sense to you? By the way, the Christians will use Stoicism. So just because we have these different philosophies that I'm kind of trying to line them up, doesn't mean that you can't have bits and pieces of the various ones merged with the others, right? St. Augustine is considered especially a Stoic, as well as a Neoplatonist. So, Epictetus. And I mentioned Lucretius, and Lucretius was a follower and his book De Rerum Natura is interesting because it's considered to be as Epicurean physics, right, is going to be atomistic, believes that there's atoms and a void. And a neat thing he got from Epicurus, Epicurus. Oh my goodness. I have to be careful here. Their names are so darn similar. But so Epicurus was the one that argued that atoms swerve, you know, so that there's like, you know, motion, and the motions of the atoms create more motions and more motions. You get the butterfly effect. You're familiar with that. You know, a butterfly in the Amazon flaps its wings and a storm hits California. You know, how does all that interact, right? I shouldn't joke about that because California is being stormed to death right now. You have friends there. I hope they're okay. Okay. Lucretius, De Rerum Natura. By the way, a neat book that one of my colleagues even used as a textbook for one of his classes was The Swerve, which was a book about the rediscovery in the Renaissance of De Rerum Natura and how that, once again being published and spread throughout Europe, led people to think about things differently, including Charles Darwin, because it's evolutionary in its view of how things start. Okay, so I should also mention the skeptics. I don't have a particular skeptic in mind, but we can go back. Skepticus, an inquirer. And the thing is, the skeptic is generally not convinced. And so, in a sense, he's also retreating from the stresses of the environment by saying all these questions don't really have an answer. Can't really think of an answer. You'll never be able to prove it one way or the other, etc. So the skeptic. I suppose it's interesting, Sextus Empiricus is the name of a famous one. And that literally means the sixth sense. I don't know if he saw dead people or not, but you know. Could be funny. I don't know. It could have been funnier if you had seen the movie, The Sixth Sense. And apparently not very many of you have. But so, that's interesting. And so, I wanted to then go to Plotinus, as promised. Remember my question, the quiz question for this week, or for today rather, is why did Christianity become the dominant religion of the Roman Empire? Notice Plotinus's teacher Ammonius Saccas, and I can't just go like this. I used to have a smart screen that would let me do that. But Ammonius Saccas was a Christian at one time. And in fact, he's also famous for teaching Origen. You see Origen anywhere? Origen. Hello, Origen. I don't see him. Let's do this. So, if you have nothing else to do with your life, you can go to this website and notice you could read about all of the pre-Nicene Council fathers. Notice how many of them are, volume 1, volume the St. Augustine volumes, which we'll be looking at in 2 classes from now, etc. These are the post-Nicene fathers, and so on. And notice these are all different volumes and so on, but you could go, and this is a different Socrates than the one we've discussed, Athanasius. Where's Origen? Oh, he would. Thank you. You have good eyes. There he is. Hello. And you could look and read these. You could read them online, you could read them, etc., etc., etc. So there's quite a few things there. But the main thing about Plotinus and the book that I recommended were the Nines. in fact, if you go to here and you go to these, and then Neod is a 9, and so you have 6 9s. And I really should have been looking at some of these. Pleasure and distress, etc. What is his philosophy all about? He's a Platonist, so he believes that there is that spiritual world and the material world is a corrupt, miserable place. But he, unlike Plato, believes that we can actually participate in the ideal world even while we're alive, and the technique that we need to use in order to do that is meditation, meditative techniques. And in fact, I suspect drugs. A lot of contemporaries that we have today think that using drugs to help reach a particular meditative state. By the way, I don't recommend this at all. I wouldn't have gotten my clearance had I used any drugs back in the 60s. I'm clearly against using drugs except for caffeine in coffee and tea, and maybe Coca-Cola occasionally. That kind of thing. I don't smoke, etc. I don't even chew gum, so when I proposed to Donna, I pointed out that I didn't drink and I didn't smoke and I didn't chew gum, so I didn't have any of the major vices, which at the time, it's pretty cool, what do you think? And I was going to say Dr. not Amen, but Michael Pollan? Spelled his name. How to Change Your Mind. This is a relatively new book. And in this book, he describes how he studied with 4 different practitioners who use drugs. The one uses peyote, another one uses LSD, another one uses, mushroom. Well, in other words, you go out and you find these people that use psilocybin and all these different drugs, and they were professionals that had used it, and so he, as a doctor, went and studied with them for an experience to find out what that particular drug did to him, and then he describes it in a chapter and so on. So it is interesting, it is out there, and by contrast with Plotinus and Buddhist monks and Roman Catholic nuns, I mean, you find every culture has some meditative technique that they inculcate among their followers. The one that I remember was the book Why God Will Not Go Away. And in this book, Dr. Newberg shows that he studied several individuals, a Buddhist monk and a Roman Catholic nun, who were meditating while being scanned in a medical brain scanner. What is it? I forget which kind. In any case, what he noticed was as they entered into their meditation, they closed down their sensory inputs from their eyes, from their ears, from their skin. In other words, they closed down all the ways that they had contact with the world, except this one center of the brain lit up and became hyperactive. And every one of us has that organ in our brain, or lobe in our brain, and we very rarely use it unless we train it. And the way to train it is through our cultural techniques that enable you to basically sit calmly and just relax and focus and become one with the universe. And when they became one with the universe, it was just absolutely amazing. They felt and really were one with the universe. That seems to me exactly what Plotinus describes in his books. So next class we'll be looking at what led the Roman Empire to become Christian. So, any questions? Are you having fun?
Yeah, having fun.
Do I need to tell more jokes? Fewer jokes? Better jokes?
I actually like class. I just don't sleep well over, so I miss class.
I understand. I used to work nights in school. I was a night watchman at a friend's boarding home. So my job was to sit up all night from 4:30 in the evening to 7:30 in the morning, making sure that this retirement home was safe, and then go to school in the day.
Sounds fun.
So I had some interesting. The neat thing though was my job didn't require anything except being there, so I studied the whole time. Learned a lot. Yeah, and they paid me $1.65 an hour.
I'm sure it was more proportionally.
Well, that's how much it was, but back then $1.65 an hour was worth a lot more than that would be today.